Welcome to another live stream, everyone. Please do me a favor. As always, let me know if you can see the charts clearly. You can hear me all right. Hopefully, you're all having a fantastic day so far. Bitcoin looking okay. I have a couple concerns, but I also see some good in this chart, which I will get into very shortly here. And as well, I want to take a look at a few altcoins, you guys. I want to look at Ethereum, Solana, Hype, Jupiter, Troll. Those are kind of the main ones. If anyone has any altcoin requests that you really want me to look at in this stream, I'm going to try and keep this one fairly short. However, if you have any altcoin requests you really want thrown in there, let me know and I will do my best to get to it. All good, sound and video. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, you guys. And thank you for being here with me. Always love doing these with you guys. So let's get right into this, you guys. Basically, since last week, when was this? The first, I believe it was the first of the month, when I basically took this long down here and started my stream a few minutes later, pretty much. And I'm still in that position, you guys. I still have about a quarter of that running. It's a very nice, relaxed place to be right now. I actually have several positions open, which those of you in my Telegram are well aware. And yeah, those of you in my last couple streams, I mean, not much has really changed over the weekend, but there is a few things. So yeah, basically at this point, I mean, Bitcoin got a nice bounce. It got, I mean, even in my stream, right after taking this stream, or taking this long rather, this is basically the resistance that I was looking at. This is the range that I laid out for potential resistance. And so far, I mean, we're respecting it perfectly, right? I mean, we came into this STU'S fib, got rejected once, came up even a little bit higher to double top territory, got rejected again, and now testing that same double top territory and getting rejected once again. What does that mean for the price at this point? I think it's actually a fairly good sign right now that we keep testing resistance rather than continuously testing support. I mean, if this were a brick wall, for example, if we were just smacking away at it with a hammer, it's just getting a little bit weaker and a little bit weaker if we continue to test this. If we're going to test this a fourth time, I have a feeling that we're going to break through this resistance. And even the fact, I mean, actually, the fact that we haven't tested the 214 fib target for that short setup. I mean, I never took the short. You guys know it was just more so I was looking at that level for taking some profits off my long. But if you had played this as a bearish STU'S short setup, I mean, we've technically only hit the first target. We've done it several times off of that level. So some nice shorts off that, to be honest. But again, I just had no interest. However, the main STU'S target, the second STU'S target, the 214, has not been hit yet. This could mean one of two things, basically. One is that the bulls are just too hungry and we just keep testing at resistance and we're just going to break to the upside without even retesting support of this range because, you know, we already tested it a few times right at the start of forming it. Maybe we aren't going to come down, or maybe that move just hasn't played out yet. So at this point, I'm having a hard time taking a stab at any new positions on Bitcoin other than just like really just kind of scalps, right? Ones that I'm willing to get in and out of really quickly. Still favoring the upside on these pullbacks, basically. But it is something to consider right now that we could still come back down to these levels, even if we are bullish and carry on from there. That being said, if we just end up breaking through these levels, what's kind of the next target that we can expect for Bitcoin? I have also outlined these levels in the past, but just to bring them to your attention once again, is basically up towards about 120,000 US dollars. And that would be basically, we would be breaking out of the current midterm range, right? Because as I'm looking at structure right now, basically this was our low, lower low. This was my confirmed lower high on that midterm trend. So we're still respecting that very well. But when we end up breaking that, well, what do I do from there? You know, if we break the midterm, then at that point, I start looking more towards the longer term. Where did this swing begin? And that was all the way back here at our all-time highs at close to 125,000. More so, I guess, 124.6 thousand US dollars. But, you know, that is currently where we obviously had our big pivot in the market. But if we can break this midterm downtrend, I see no reason why we wouldn't trade a little bit higher and get a nice, I guess we'll have to see how quickly it plays out. But I would be starting to target basically anywhere above 120K at that point. Because basically, let me just kind of show you, I still have my resistance laid out here, right? My purple box is the STU'S, the red is the potential swing fail zone there that I want to see broken. But basically, if I were to pull a bearish fib from our current all-time highs to look for where our macro resistance could be, notice that's where my purple box is, ranging from about 120.9 thousand up to 122.7. And then your double top swing fail territory, if we get, some sort of a push into here, followed by losing that level and getting a retest like that, I would love to short that. But that resistance pocket lines up from basically 124.6 up to 127.3K. So really, anytime if we are going to break this resistance and climb higher, just start to be cautious if we start getting towards that 120,000. I think at that point, it's fair game for a potential rejection. I have mixed feelings about this. I don't know if it's going to be a cycle ender. I don't know if we're even going to continue to the downside after that bearish retest. We're going to have to see what structure does, but I just like to start being cautious and treating resistance with respect and expecting resistance to be resistance until it's broken. So if we end up getting to those levels there, the reason why I have issue with this resistance is just because we lost our macro uptrend, right? As you can see here with this green line here, this is where I had my high. I had a higher high, and the pullback there is fine, right? We got a little bit of a swing fail where we push above, re-lose that level. Again, would have been a beautiful short there. Some of you guys may remember I actually took a stab at that, but screwed something up there. That's totally fine. The idea was there. I just played it poorly. But the strategy for using the 115s would have worked out perfectly. I just let the emotions get the best of me at all-time highs because I'm human just like anyone, and I had other positions running, so that was just kind of a YOLO position anyways. But basically, with this playing out, even though we got that pullback, I was still looking at this as a higher high, and that would have confirmed this as our higher low on the trend. But notice what happened is we have since lost that structure. So at this point, I think this is a very valid bearish setup with my fibs pulled like this. Like I said, from about 120K up to 127K approximately. That would be fair game for rejection if this is going to be basically a warning sign, right? The fact that we lost the uptrend. It would be very natural, even though losing an uptrend like that, I mean, people love shorting into a breakout. People love trying to breakout trade and often get wrecked. But it's so normal for the price to end up losing structure like that, but then end up reclaiming it, go for a little bounce, just retesting resistance from a bearish approach, because we have this bearish confirmation. That doesn't necessarily mean short right here. It just means be on the lookout for shorts. So I think a pullback up towards resistance would fit that profile. At this point, I don't know if I don't have any blind shorts set or anything like that, but I will be looking for short opportunities up in these pockets just because the fibs are there. It doesn't mean that it has to play out. It's just, that's the benefit of having a structured, systematic trade setup, is basically you can approach things with a level head. And even though I don't know if we're even going to get back up to those levels, for all I know, the floor gives out and we start our bear market right after this video. I have no idea, right? It could happen. I don't think it will, but it could happen. But that's where just playing our odds, having a systematic setup, and being able to keep a level head is so important in this market, and why it's important to plan ahead so that if we do get up to these levels at this point, since I'm talking about it so much, I'll know that not to let those emotions get the best of me of FOMOing into those positions and thinking we can never go back down while we're trading at resistance, right? Because that's the thing. The price always looks the best as we're trading at resistance, just like it always looks the weakest when we're trading at support. Because how many people were actually longing down here? I mean, I even told you guys, I told you guys in my Telegram as well that I thought it was a very high risk setup. I was fighting the midterm trend, but there was a valid fib there on a shorter time frame. And look how beautiful of a position that turned into. It looked weak as hell, you guys, but since the system was there, I was able to approach that with a level head. And I mean, I hit over 300% on that trade setup so far. So absolutely beautiful. Just want to take a look at the weekly quick as well. I can't really say too much about the weekly at this point, to be honest. I have my concerns because much like on the 4 hour and the 1 hour I was looking at, I mean, we obviously lost some support there. And the fact that we could be flipping this whole zone, this old support into resistance currently, that's something that we have to acknowledge is absolutely possible, right? So it's very possible the rest of my position gets stopped out at break even. That's totally fine. You know, that's why I paid myself along the way while I was able to before we get that reversal, right? So at this point, I can approach it with a very level head. And guys, for those of you who are interested in trading the charts, just looking at some more of my trading strategies, some of my trade setup ideas, more examples of how I view market structure, and you just want more of my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor, get in the Telegram by scanning the QR code or clicking on the link in the description down below. Yeah, we've been basically... like I said, I had called out right before my stream on the first, basically this Bitcoin long that we ended up taking here and played out absolutely beautifully. Jupiter, this is one that I took about 2 weeks ago. I think 2 weeks ago as of yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, maybe not quite. But I took this live on stream as well. Somebody Altcoin requested that I look at that, and it just so happened to be sitting in a fib pocket that I liked. And guys, I've just had so many long positions open lately. I think I currently have 5 on the go. But yeah, still long on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Jupiter, Troll, and Hype currently. So yeah, those of you who, I mean, even Hype, you guys, Hype has been performing so well. I'm going to talk about that in a second as well. This coin has been performing so strong, and just overnight, a quick 166% profit on something like that. So guys, if that is something that interests you, you want to check out the Telegram. My partners at BloFin are currently giving new members only. Usually they give promotions to all of my members, but this is one for new users specifically. Just a small trading deposit with a nice little bonus there to try out the exchange, try out the Telegram, all that sort of good stuff, guys. If that does interest you, scan the QR code on the screen, either that one there or the one that I've currently pulled up here. Hope to see you in there. But that being said, guys, speaking of altcoins, I mean, let's just take a look at the Bitcoin dominance. I mean, I've been talking about this since we were trading right up here, since before we broke this white line here. We were approaching the 786 on a 5.5-year range. Absolutely huge resistance there, and topping out absolutely perfectly, losing an uptrend line, losing another uptrend line. And this is just trending to the downside quite aggressively. And this is where I think this is beautiful for altcoins right now. As long as the market can hold on strong, actually find its footing, you know, Bitcoin continues to push a little bit higher rather than just ending up, that was just a dead cat bounce, let's say, and we start dropping to the downside, then yeah, altcoins are probably going to get their asses kicked with it. However, if Bitcoin finds its footing, this is recipe for altcoins to do very well. If Bitcoin can climb without even trying, basically, because emphasis is not on it, if it's losing dominance, and the market's healthy, that's a very good sign. So I want to see this continue dropping. And honestly, at this point, if I were to treat this like any other STU'S fib, I don't care. Yes, this is a daily chart and it's a 5.5-year pattern. But just notice how well it was respected, right? So close to the 786 there and trending to the downside since that. If this was a typical STU'S fib setup, I mean, we haven't even hit the 0.5 fib yet. So not even the first target technically. And the second target would be the 214 down here. So if that's going to happen, that gives altcoins a nice window of time to make their push. Even if this is near, guys, I know how this sounds, but it's very possible that we are nearing the end of the cycle. It's yes, there's a chance that this turns into a longer, slower, drawn out cycle. Absolutely anything is possible. But if we are going to continue the typical 4-year cycle, we are getting very close to an end. And if, you know, this would be one of those signs, Doesn't mean that it's necessarily bear market time yet, but if we see altcoins start to go absolutely nuts, that's generally closer to the end of the cycle. So it's bittersweet, right? It's nice because everybody loves those parabolic charts, especially on altcoins. But the disappointing part would be if that happens, there's a good chance that the bear market is kind of just around the corner. I mean, that can play out for months, to be honest, but we're going to have to see what happens. But I love to see, basically, moral of the story, I love to see that the Bitcoin dominance is dropping right now. Bitcoin dominance continues to drop and Ethereum can keep pushing decent prices, just holding on to support, either bouncing around sideways or setting new highs. That would be a huge green light for the altcoins as well. Currently, I mean, you guys know, I'm actually in an Ethereum long as well. I took this, I think it was on Friday. I can't remember exactly when this was. Basically, the whole weekend, it just traded sideways. It traded sideways, bouncing around from basically my 786 down to my 115. Hit all of my entries. I basically entered at the 786 and also had an entry down closer to my 115. Ended up bringing my average entry down a little bit. We have obviously hit my first target, but we haven't hit the 214 target yet. So I'm still hopeful that the rest of my position will continue to climb. Yes, it's looking a little bit weak right now, but at least if nothing else, I have already secured some profits. And, you know, if I get stopped out from here, then at least my position is smaller and I have some profits to, you know, put off, just offset that loss a little bit. So just reducing my risk, if nothing else there. Solana, looking beautiful as well. I mean, currently, well, it actually just bounced off a nice 886 there. I never even took this trade, but I had this fib laid out. Just another beautiful one, right? And using the MDX Trendmaster as confluence, where we get a much higher buy signal. And that means this was my previous pivot before that. And since the sells and the buys are trending to the upside, pulling a fib from there, notice we fill that fib pocket and we have hit the first target and the second target from that setup. So love using those indicators as a bit of confluence. If you do want to try some of those indicators that I use every single day when I'm trading, I use the MDX ALGO indicators every single day. If you want to try them out, there is a 10% discount in a link in the description down below as well. But just telling you how I see it right here. So far looking good. I would actually be willing to pull a new fib right now. This one I'm going to have mixed feelings about. One is, since we got another higher printed buy signal, I want to use this pivot and basically just start chasing the price, right? If the price continues to climb, my range is going to expand. But so far, it's currently like this. I love that it has this indicator confluence right now. What I don't like is that we don't have a higher high on the trend. I would really like to see this push a little bit higher to new highs there and then get its pullback. At that point, we would have the higher trending buy signals and we would have a higher high with the pullback, the typical STU'S pullback just from structure alone. So I would love to see that. So far, the indicators are liking it. I just wish that we had actual new higher high structure there, but still not bad, right? We obviously do still have higher highs because since we had our highs here and we sent a range higher there, we obviously do still have this as our confirmed higher low. But I would like to see that turn into this one here. If we set a new higher high, that's where I consider that a confirmed higher low at that point. Right now, yeah, it obviously looks like a higher low, but it's not confirmed until we have another structure break to the upside there. Also, Solana, I want to zoom out. You guys know I've been talking about this probably since we were down just above $150. I think well, maybe at 160, 170, but I've been very vocal about this, that I really think that Solana is on its way to at least 250 US dollars. Again, just using a typical STU'S Fibonacci strategy here, looking for where do I think that we could run into some resistance if we do end up climbing. Just notice that my 786 is right around 253. The 886 is closer to 273. So I'm just going to call it 250 to 275 there. And then there's also the possibility, that's just where resistance starts, right? The double top swing fail zone basically ranges from 296 up to about 327 approximately. So at this point, still a beautiful trend. I mean, let me just show you what I mean and like just how accurate this structure can be and how you can catch a trend on the go, right? Just to show you how well very, very basic market structure works, you guys, on an uptrend like this. And so obviously, okay, so here would have been actually, we got a little swing fail here. We lost our higher low and we started this downtrend here. So after we end up breaking it, let's just say, and I'm looking for bigger ranges here, but let's say, okay, you know what? We've obviously set a higher high. That confirms this, the lowest point between the two, as our higher low. Here we set a slightly higher high. That confirms this as our higher low. Another slightly higher high, higher low, lowest point between the two, higher high, higher low. Sorry, I know my lines aren't perfectly straight, but you get my point. Here we have another higher high here. So even if we see a pullback at this point, we have beautiful structure right down here. And this, guys, again, this is very, very, very basic market structure. This is literally, it should be day one stuff. However, it's very easy to look over and a lot of people don't actually break it down that well. So a lot of people don't understand market structure as well as they could. And honestly, that's one of the main things for me. I mean, indicators are great, but for me, it's always naked market structure first. And from there, I like to look at indicators for that confluence, just for a second opinion kind of a thing. But this is exactly why I say that I still think Solana looks absolutely fantastic, because it just won't lose its uptrend on the midterm. You know, Bitcoin did lose its uptrend on the midterm. Solana did back here, right? When we ended up losing this support here, we absolutely lost that. But since that, on our little recovery here, this micro trend is still just setting higher highs and higher lows. So at this point, that is a beautiful trend, and I have no reason to think otherwise. I still think we're on our way towards that macro resistance retest. So we could pull back even right now. Let's say we do see a little bit of a pullback tonight, tomorrow, whatever. And not to say that we can't lose this level, right? But if we do see a pullback, don't be too surprised. And it would be very healthy price action to pull back all the way, really, as long as we stay above 190 US dollars. Solana's looking very good on the 4-hour. If we start losing that, then yeah, I have my concerns. But at this point, we just keep setting higher highs and higher lows. And that brings me to the next coin, you guys, is Hype. Actually, a little bit of a warning here on the 5-minute. But when I really zoom out, you guys, I'm actually here. Let me do something. I am going to. Oh, that didn't even bring it up. Hype USDTP BloFin chart. Let's bring up Hype here. I will remove all my drawings. And guys, I've been talking about this one quite bullishly since about $18, and it has just been a very strong performer. Basically, if I bring up the MDX Trendmaster on the daily, ever since our first buy signal and a beautiful retest of that, right, or actually at around $17, absolutely beautiful and just on an absolute moon mission. All of these pullbacks, very minimal, just did not break the structure at all. Because, and just showing you that same thing is if we had this high here, here's our higher high. This confirms our higher low. We get, where's our next higher high? Not actually this one, right? We never actually got above there, but this one, there's our higher high. So at that point, I can now bump up my confirmed higher low, something like that. And since then, I'm just going to juggle here. We have now set another higher high. So where is the lowest point between the two? That is our confirmed higher low at about $42.30. Yeah, that's quite a tumble from where we are, but that's a daily chart. Of course, it's a volatile, large ranges. That's totally normal when you're looking at swing time frames, right? But let's zoom in even to the 4-hour. Same thing. That structure holds true, right? We're just setting higher highs and confirming those higher lows. So at this point, if Hype was going to see a pullback, I would be very interested in support laid out something like this. Basically, support would be anywhere from $45.20 down to $40.39 is basically where I would be laddering my entries if I was looking for a long on something like that. So, and guys, I mean, this is the entire price history of this coin, right? That's the beautiful thing about this is hype is actually in, well, not, I don't know if I'd call it a blue sky breakout because it's not just absolutely breaking out. It's actually moving very healthy. It's just staircasing slightly higher, doing a fantastic job of building that support on the way up. So at this point, it's still in price discovery. It's just finding out what it wants to be valued at. And, you know, today is no different. Today we set a new all-time high. So hype has been one of my favorite coins to trade for a little while now. Basically, Ethereum, Solana, and hype have been my three main altcoins. You know, they have a decent market cap, they have good volume, that sort of stuff, and just nice, clean charts. So yeah, I think hype looks absolutely fantastic. The Trendmaster indicator, same thing, you guys, right? I mean, I talk about this every single stream. Just look at those beautiful higher trending buy signals on the MDX Trendmaster, right? From this one here. So notice that we break the lower sell signal, right? Because we had this trend to the downside, sell signal, lower buy signal, lower sell signal. We end up breaking that sell signal. And from there, it was game on. Basically, the downtrend was broken, right? But even if you waited until the higher buy signal, just look at that beautiful trend, right? We end up getting this buy signal here. And let's just check, just using the previous swing points as invalidation, basically, right? We get our higher buy signal. So if you were just looking at laddering in on the way down towards your support level, you know, beautiful opportunity there. Again, we get another higher buy signal. Barely moves the support at all, but it does a little bit. And again, another higher buy signal. We move the support to the pivot before that. Another higher buy signal, moving that again. And again, currently another higher buy signal. And notice that actually, that pivot point there lines up with the fib that I just pulled, basically. I am just going to adjust this very slightly just to make it more accurate. But yeah, that confirms that that's where the indicator is being used as confluence, that my naked chart setup just based on structure, that's the fib pull I have. And now my indicator, the MDX Trendmaster, is agreeing with that. So, I mean, so far that is looking like the play to me. If we do see a pullback, I would be very interested in longing something like that. ALGO Master, that is showing a short setup, but it actually would be invalidated already. And I personally wouldn't be looking at shorting something like this when it's got such an obvious uptrend. But that is how that laid it out. Speaking of that, actually, speaking of the ALGO Master, I do want to check a couple other pairs just to see basically what they're saying. The ALGO Master. So notice the ALGO Master, it prints out automatic STU'S fibs. And this is one of those times too, right, where I have this one mapped out on my 1 hour, my 4 hour, etc. And notice that the 4 hour actually has the exact same Fibonacci pockets for resistance to watch for, as far as the 786, 886, 1115. So I love to have that little bit of confluence there. Looking at the 1 hour, let's see what it says on the 1 hour. So it actually had a bearish one. However, it has technically played out already, right? Basically, this indicator currently has a fib pull. Where does this yellow dotted line go to? Right to this high here. Yep, that checks out. And it pulls down to this bottom right here. So I would say, yes, that checks out. It all makes sense. And notice where we ended up getting rejected. We came up and we actually got a couple of setups out of this where we tested the 786, 886 fib pocket a couple of times. And we even hit the first target there. Hit the first, and I'm going to say that's the second target because I always front run my targets a little bit anyways when taking profits. Again, I had no interest in shorting, but still beautiful to see that the MDX ALGO Master there with the auto fibs was able to lay one out there, and it played out. Whether or not I was interested in it, it did absolutely play it out. So I love using that as confluence. So to see it on the 4 hour, lining up with my potential zones of interest, let's say, as far as resistance, That's just all the more reason for me to take those levels serious, and why exactly, I say that I think I just love using Fibonacci strategies, right? Because it's so systematic. And if it doesn't play out, you have your invalidation levels. That's the thing with trading, right? It's not about being right every time. It's about controlling your invalidation levels and having invalidation levels, period. Very important. And guys, if that is something, like I said, you want to learn more about how I pull fibs, how I look at market structure, my overall thoughts on the market in general, you just want more examples of that kind of setup, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen, get involved there. Yeah, Jupiter was another one that I wanted to take a look at. Like I had mentioned earlier, you guys, I did take this long live on stream, and my reasoning for that was, once again, Fibonacci's, right? I was just looking at basically the fact that when I was asked to check out Jupiter, we were trading right here. And it was just one of those times where I was like, oh, we're below this level here, but let me pull a fib. We haven't actually broke the 115. So this is one of those setups where if this is going to act as a swing fail, we have a nice tight invalidation on this kind of a setup. And we actually ended up, what was it? It was very close to a 10-to-1 risk reward setup, which is absolutely huge. We got back to the top of the range. And yeah, so actually my stop was just below 45. So it was about 9.5 to 1 and hit those targets, right? I was obviously taking profits along the way. First target, second target, third target, still have a quarter of that position running at this moment. Because I like to leave some of a position run. I don't like to go all in on a trade on entry. I like to ladder in. I shouldn't say all in. That makes it sound like the entire account. I mean, the entire position I'm willing to throw in. I like to ladder into those. Sure, sometimes your wins end up a little smaller than you would like, but it also makes those losses more manageable when they happen by laddering in. Just like on the way out, I like to ladder out of my positions. However, I like to hold on to a moon bag just in case, what if this thing goes up 10x or something like that? I don't care if it's only a small position at this point. I still want to hang on to that, and I'll just nibble on some profits on the way if it doesn't get stopped at break even. I actually thought it was going to back here, and it never did. So I still have a part of that position running. Troll is another one that I was talking about when we dropped into this support zone. Let me just turn off a couple things, clean this up a little bit. That's the current fibs, but basically I had something like this mapped out. And again, just looking at this fib pocket, basically the STU'S fibs, but also this pocket, the 115. When we ended up testing that while we were flipping this diagonal resistance into support, I had to take a bit of a long on that. I also added to my spot bags. On something like that, I'm mostly trading at spot. But I couldn't resist. I had to throw a little 10x in that as well. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, with meme coins and low cap coins, that doesn't even have that low of a cap anymore, I guess, about 173 million or so. But yeah, meme coins, etc., are obviously very high risk. So, be careful if you are trading that kind of a thing. That is the meme coins are the penny stock of the crypto world, basically the wild, wild west of the wild, wild west. So do with that information what you will. Ethereum trying to bounce a little bit. Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, it's looking a little weak because we do currently have lower trending buy signals. The sell signals still trending to the upside. There's a bit of mixed signals there. I don't like that we lost this higher low, right? We had this high, higher low. However, I know that we are around a 115 right there at a quick eyeball. If I pull a fib, something like that, we basically tested the 115 absolutely perfectly. And so far we're holding it. So it could be like one of those situations, just like Jupiter back here, where, it doesn't quite break the 115 and it continues to the upside from there. I would love to see Bitcoin do the same, but at this point, just a little bit of a heads up. It does look a little bit weak is all. So just be careful. Yeah, Ethereum, really nothing has changed since before the weekend. We have just been trading sideways. Like I said, glad that we hit my first target to reduce my risk a little bit on that position. But yeah, not really doing too much. If I hop over to the 4 hour, the 4 hour structure is still holding. This is something that I had mentioned in my, well, actually the last couple weeks. Basically, I was talking about how, you know, the fact that Ethereum tested new highs, we do technically have this support down here. And so far we're holding the 786. We could actually drop a little bit below 4,000 US dollars. And in my opinion, wouldn't be necessarily that bad yet, as long as we hold basically 39.25. 39.20. If we start dropping below that, I'll have my concerns on the trend. But until that happens, doesn't look too bad. Even though we have a sell signal on the trend master right now, it's a higher sell signal, so it is fighting the trend at this point. The ALGO master is currently showing a very similar fib pull to what I showed on Bitcoin. So much the same. If this does get a nice climb, I would start to be a little bit careful as we get near the 786, which would be very close to 4,800 US dollars. 4,800 to all-time highs. Basically, that is potential rejection zone, right? So be cautious if we do climb, and if we get to those levels, that's where we have to start considering resistance again. Solana, you guys know my thoughts on Solana already. Hype 4 hours still looking good. Hype on, actually, I just want to take away that chart to bring up the 5 minute on hype. What is the trend master currently saying? So we do have this warning, right? The fact that the MDX trend master has printed a lower sell signal. To be fair, at this point, it is mixed signals, right? The fact that we have higher trending buy signals and lower trending sell signals, that's a little bit of mixed signals with my indicator there. So there's not a clear trend anymore. Just time to be a little bit cautious is all. But as long as we can hold basically against above $52.30, honestly, maybe even these lows back here with a little wiggle room. Ideally, I would like to stay above this low here at 52.30. But there could even be some wiggle room here, even pulling a fib, something like this, looking for our 115. I don't really want to see us drop below $52. But at this point, I still don't overly want to short something like this because, again, hype is in price discovery. It has been performing so strong, even when Bitcoin and other things have been struggling a little bit. Hype has been performing very well. So I don't want to short it. However, I will take this as caution. I should even consider closing a little more of my long position because of that, just because it's a bit of a warning. I'm actually going to do that. Okay, but yeah, still not looking so bad. I have a feeling this is just theoretical at this point. I'm not going to enter a new position assuming this is going to happen, but I do assume that we are going to invalidate this and set a higher buy signal again, just because of how much strength hype has had recently. I don't really know if it's going to stop now, but the warning's there, right? Guys, I do want to catch up on the chat a little bit. Again, let me know in the chat if there's any altcoins specifically you want me to look at. I'll start taking a look at some of them. Let me know what time frame you generally look at. Brian, I see you in here, so I will look at Supra for sure, my brother. But yeah, let me just catch up on some of the chat here, you guys. Triple top, I never remember seeing that in any asset. I definitely have, where we could set something, consider it less. Here, let me just save this because I'm going to remove stuff. Consider it less of a triple top and more of a rising wedge. I think it would take a while to play out, and it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly a rising wedge, but that's just kind of how I look at that resistance line. So if we did, and again, this is very theoretical. I'm still bullish, but we do have to consider a few things. One, the bear market bottom to bull market top, we're right around that 150 week that general cycles like to respect. So from a timing perspective, we could be getting close. But again, just it's not even that I would be necessarily bearish at these levels. It's just something to be cautious of because it's possible, right? The fact that we lost this structure here, very possible that we see some sort of a rejection, some sort of a swing fail. Again, not that I would be bearish, but I would be more willing to look for bearish setups at resistance than I would be FOMOing long right into resistance, right? Just like the people who were FOMOing short into support. I don't want to be the guy longing into resistance. So if we get, and there's a lot of what ifs there, right? Just if we happen to get back to the highs, it's just time to be a little bit cautious. Start watching the shorter time frames, if anything, not necessarily taking a YOLO long right at resistance and not accepting anything other than that. Just make sure you have your invalidations in place, right? Bullish or bearish? I'm leaning more bullish for the time being, basically. Ethereum has been holding the line 4270. Yes, absolutely. I want to zoom into my normal chart here. What was that? Yeah, basically 4270, somewhere in there. But yeah, very nice to see. Again, Ethereum was looking weak all weekend because it was just trading right along support. But eventually, like I said, it hit the first target. And even now, it looks weak again. However, we're still holding support. Support is support until it's broken. So Ethereum's still looking not too bad there. Audio keeps going in and out. Hopefully not. Audio is messed up. No. Hopefully that was just for KB. Hopefully you're not all getting that. If so, I'm sorry. I don't know what would be causing that. Brandon C. Stuber fib. Yes. Love me some Stuber fibs. What do I think of STX? And greetings from Canada, my man. Nice. Welcome. Love to see another Maple Leafer in the crowd. East Coast, West Coast, Central. Feel free to not answer if you're uncomfortable. All good. STX. I will check STX. Actually, just as I did that, something caught my eye on Jupiter. Again, guys, just to show you how often this happens. I mean, here's an example. We had our high. We set a higher high. This would be our confirmed higher low. And look at this. Just at a quick eyeball, I can tell you what happened there. We came down to my 786, 886 fib pocket, and we've already hit the 214 fib there. So obviously it's already happened. That's Captain Hindsight. But just to show you how often that type of a setup actually shows up in the charts, just how often price action likes to bounce around rather than trading in one direction. And that's exactly why I like trading pullbacks and retracements rather than breakouts, is for that exact reason right there. But yes, back to what I was trying to get to. STX. What is that all trading on? Oh, it is on BloFin. Let's check it out. Oh boy, that is a market cycle right there. So I'm going to start zoomed out, work my way in here on stacks here. Hopefully that is the correct STX. I mean, if I pull the fib from the bottoms to the market highs there, I mean, yeah, we went a little bit lower than the fib pocket, but we're still holding support technically. Actually, when we broke this down, oh my God, that was beautiful. That was a beautiful one. before I jump all over the place. Okay, first of all, I'm just going back and analyzing, and we're going to work our way to our current price action. But just to show you how often this happens, here's a perfect example. Lower low, lower low, lower high. We end up breaking that, pull our fib, boom, 786, 886, perfect. Got very close to the 214 target, never quite hit it, but I got very close and have retraced from there. Here's how I feel about this chart on the daily is, well, for one, I just assume that if the whole market is going to pump, then this is going to find support and it's going to be a beautiful thing. My one concern about this and why I pointed out that fib that I did already is that, you know, technically we are trading at support, but we did lose that first move advantage. Quite often, I mention all the time, actually, that when I typically play these trade setups, I like the first test of that fib pocket because it's so often tested at least once for some kind of a reaction. So we are still technically trading along support, and support is support until it's broken. However, this has already played out once, the 786, 886. If you laddered in something like that, average entry in the middle, we did hit the first target, and depending how much you front run it, that might be a little steep, but very close to the 214. So it's hard to say if it's going to play out again. I would absolutely love to give you a fib something like this and say that, you know, hey, we have a new Stuber here. We're bouncing off the 786. I agree. We are bouncing off a potential one because on this micro trend, sure, we broke that micro trend there just by breaking this resistance, basically. So yes, technically we are testing that fib again, and we have not tested the first two targets yet. However, I would feel so much better about this, just like I was talking about earlier. I can't remember even which coin it was, but if we would have set a higher high here, I would have felt so much better about pulling a fib from here, using it as a confirmed high or low. The fact that we don't have that structure lining up with us, it's a little riskier is all, because we don't have the momentum of that structure break on our side, basically. We have the smaller one here, yes, but I would love to have seen a higher high there. I would have felt a lot more comfortable about this fib. But it is what it is. Like I said, it is still support. That's what matters at the end of the day. I want to see what the ALGO master is saying. It's actually currently pulling a bearish fib, but we are not at those bearish levels yet. So, I mean, even if we are going to get to those levels, we could still climb another 18% to get to that level, basically around 76 cents, basically. Let's see, what is the trend master saying? So we have a series of lower buy and lower sell signals. So that is a trend that needs to break, basically. Let's zoom in a little bit, see what the 1 hour is saying. Bring up the trend masters. So what I do like to see about this is we do have signs of strength on the 1 hour. So lining up with that nice big daily support, we do technically have higher trending buy signals at this point on the 1 hour MDX trend master. And we have broken this lower sell signal trend, right? Sell signal, lower sell signal, lower sell signal, lower sell signal. Here's where we got that pivot. And notice that even though we never flipped it into support perfectly, it's nice that we at least broke that downtrend. It's absolutely possible we drop back further, like YOLOing into a long right now. It's a little bit risky. If we pull back, we could pull a fib something like this. Because that would basically line up with our previous pivot point. You know, I would even consider bumping that up, something like this. Basically wouldn't want to lose 60 cents. I think that could be rough. That is a little bit tricky, to be fair, because as you zoom out, this is one of those times where just because of how the structure is lining up, if we lose the 1 hour support, then we still have this bigger support that's very nearby. Because just like what I was talking about with that bearish trend, if you break the midterm trend, then you're looking at the longer term trend, right? If we invalidate this midterm trend, our most recent higher buy signal, then at that point, I would just assume that we're heading towards support of where that move started. So basically, as soon as one's invalidated, the other one begins. So that's a little bit of a tricky one just because of how the structure formed there. But I would love to see this 1 hour trend hold. Like I said, on the 4 hour, on the daily, I have my concerns because we never set a higher high here. However, we are still trading at support. There's a lot of red flags, I'll give it that, but we are technically at support. Habu71. So is that 5 days of holding 4270 in Ethereum? Is that strength? I think so at this point. I mean, the trend hasn't broken, right? The fact that we're still holding that support. And again, just like I was talking about earlier, the 4 hour, we're technically just at the start of support. So Ethereum could drop significantly further and still be quite healthy. If it drops towards 4K, even towards 39.25, it would still be healthy in my opinion. But yeah, as far as the shorter time frames, yeah, you know, the fact that it's holding these levels, I see that as a sign of strength. The only thing is now, just like what I was talking about with liking to play these fibs on the first move advantage, right? Like I said, so I'm going to pull a fib from that low to this high, basically. And let me erase some other things just to clean this up a little bit. So basically, if I pulled a fib something like this, you can see that we've just kind of been bouncing off that 786 there. And again, just that first move advantage right now, it would be a little riskier getting into a new long, although I do see a little bit of strength there. It would just be a little bit risky because this move has already technically played out, right? I mean, we could even have it pulled something like this, and we got a beautiful one right there, right? If you would have longed something like this, TP 1, 2, 3. And then since we did set that higher high, oh, actually, that's why I had my fib set like this. Since we did set a higher high there, high, higher high, lowest point between the two, that's why I had my fib set like this. And that's why we came down towards that 115. So even though if you pull your fib from this level down here, we're actually more so trading along the 786 here. Even with the fib like this, with a proper invalidation like that, it's also been playing out okay. So, but yeah, since it's already hit the first target, right, a couple of times, that's just where it starts to get a little bit risky because I've already had the opportunity to pay myself a little bit and reduce my risk on something like that. So getting into something new at this point, it's just a little risky because sometimes when you keep testing the same trade setup, eventually it fails. And this would be basically the third time that we're coming down into this fib pocket here after testing the 0.5 fib. Doge looks real good. ETF coming tomorrow. Interesting. Is that confirmed or that's a rumor? Doge is one I have not looked at in a little while, but I assume I still have a chart mapped out. There we go. Look at that. Absolutely beautiful. If I was a betting man, I would say, Maz, if you're in here watching the stream, I would assume you were the one who got me to look at this last. But same thing, right, is, oh, I've actually, okay, so I've mapped it out since we set this high. Because I know originally I had this mapped out. Again, we broke the downtrend, low, lower, low, lower, high, broke it, came back into that fib pocket, and boom, target 1, target 2, target 3. Beautiful position there. If you took it, I should say, because I should say good setup, beautiful setup there. I never actually traded Doge on that one, but the setup was there. And yeah, now that we've set new highs, I would pull my fibs something like this. So if Doge does pull back, I would expect, anywhere from 17.5 cents down to, oh boy, that's a big range, all the way down to 12.3 cents. So that's the thing with these volatile coins when you're looking at larger time frames, is unfortunately invalidation is far away. But that's where I would probably, if we did pull back into these levels, I'd be looking at something like the 5-minute and looking for some sort of a microstructure break on a lower time frame inside support of a larger time frame, basically. Another thing we could look at right now, what's the Algo master saying? Look at that, the exact same fibs that I have pulled. Once again, love to have that as confluence when AI agrees with what I'm looking at. Trend master indicator, basically a double bottom buy signal. So no clear signal on the MDX trend master on the on the daily at this time. So that's actually a daily. That fib pocket as well is a daily. That's why the range is so big. That's why it's such a massive invalidation. The 4 hour is very likely the exact same though. Yeah. What is the Algo master saying on the 4 hour? It currently does have a bearish setup laid out here. Again, I'm not as interested in shorting the market right now, but you can see it even got that little swing fail up towards that 115, and so far struggling. Haven't hit any of its targets yet. I'm personally not interested in that one. Trend master. Yeah, it's a bit of a warning. Lower buy signal, lower sell signal. It looks like there's some strength there. It looks like we're going to invalidate this previous sell signal here. I guess technically we got a wick above it, but I don't know. That's not overly confident. It's not a big close above resistance or anything like that. So at this point, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Doge. Also, I know how those ETF announcements work and how they love to be sell the news events. So be careful with that one. Some more hopium, FOMO hopium to, take your liquidity. Just be careful with that one. I'm not a guy who trades the news. So if you do and you have success with that, by all means. I just personally, I like to look at the charts, and I generally put my fingers in my ears and my hands over my eyes, and I avoid speeches and announcements and fundamentals. I basically just look at the charts because, generally speaking, if something like the ETF is going to be a sell the news event, we'll just see structure form to the downside. If the ETF is going to be a mega bullish event, then we see structure start forming to the upside. That's basically, I would just rather look at the structure, because the fundamentals matter, but they don't matter for the immediate term unless the structure is agreeing with that, basically. MDX Algo in the house. Nice. Stu, being right every time is pretty darn good, though. Yeah, being right is pretty darn good every time. But unfortunately, for most of us, that's not the case. I've been wrong once. Yes. OKC, if you love Fib, you can use them in time as well for time analysis, I assume you're talking about. Yeah, I haven't done much for time analysis, but you are correct. I know that is a thing. I just personally haven't dove down that rabbit hole all too much. I keep everything I look at quite simple, to be honest. Dan Rab, good to see you, for one. And for two, where's a good entry for WLD on the 1 hour? I will check it out. Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, honestly, right now, I don't. I have mixed feelings about this right now, quite honestly. Obviously, the trend master is loving this and has a very strong trend, which is hugging the bottom of this little range quite well. So maybe we will see support step in here. Looking at things from a naked chart perspective and ignoring indicators first, just looking at basic chart structure, is here we would have had our high, higher low, and we lost this. So at this point, it's very possible that we end up seeing a bit of a rejection, even if we bounce. This does not mean that it has to happen. Like I said, the Trendmaster, yeah, sure, it could provide support. I just have a hard time FOMOing into something that looks like that because it's exploded so nicely there. And because we broke that structure. So at this point, either basically right now, I mean, even on this micro trend here would be our low, lower high. So for one, I would like to see us break that and then pull back to retest support and get that kind of an entry. At least in that case, you have a nice tight invalidation to get into something. Other than that, if we just respect this lower high here and continue our downtrend, then unfortunately it could take quite a tumble. I would actually zoom out a little bit. I would basically be looking at something like this. Again, not saying it has to drop that far, but that it's absolutely possible that the majority of the move would get retraced. I personally think that we would end up breaking the micro downtrend before getting to this level, but it is something to consider that anything is possible, right? If it can go up that fast, it can go down that fast, but we'll have to see what happens there. ALGO Master, oh yeah, that's long gone. Trend Master, like I said, on the 1 hour looking good. 4 hour, yeah, way below us. The daily obviously going to be even further below us, which actually lines up with that big fib pocket. So yeah, I have mixed feelings about that. As long as this 1 hour trend can hold, fantastic, but it's risky just because we lost that actual structure, right? So be on the lookout of resistance, basically. Getting back to $2.10 up to basically $2.28. All fair game for resistance, retest, rejection. So just be on the lookout for that. Be a little cautious. I'm not saying YOLO some shorts into it, anything like that. Also, I, again, don't follow fundamentals, don't follow the project at all. But just looking at the charts here, unfortunately, we broke that mega uptrend, except the indicators still show potential support. So not all hope is lost there. Crystal ball BS, please don't get wrecked trading, just hold. And honestly, that's a good point for a lot of people. A lot of people shouldn't trade, right? I love trading. Trading is what I do. But yeah, it's not for everybody. But that's where having an actual systematic trade strategy, being able to keep a level head, not over leveraging, over trading, just dwindling your account, having proper invalidations, not just saying, hey, here's a low, I'm going to set my stop loss right below this kind of a thing, having actually understanding market structure, huge edge in the market. If you're ever trying to trade just based on a gut feeling or reading headlines or tweets, you're going to get absolutely destroyed in this market. Could I look at RVN? Is that Raven coin? I haven't looked at that in literally years, if that's the one I'm thinking of. Ha, it is. As far as the weekly, let's check out the daily here. So it doesn't have terrible structure here. Let's just see. Obviously, we could pull back a little bit further because, well, we might just be front running the 786 a little bit. Understand that we could go further. Support is basically from, well, 1.2 cents down to 0.9 cents, we'll call it, and then possible liquidity grab. If we lose that, I would have my concerns, but if we reclaimed it quickly, I think that we could get a nice bounce from there. At this point, it's very possible that we do just end up bouncing to the upside. As far as structure goes, I mean, I love that we started this little uptrend, right? Because we had our low, lower low, lower high, we broke it, whatever, setting higher highs, etc. But then even when we had this little pullback, right, this one right here, so just looking at the micro trend, we ended up breaking that microstructure. So if I pulled a new fib, something like this, all right, actually, that is similar to one of the other coins that I was looking at, is the same kind of thing, where this has technically played out as far as bouncing off the obvious support level. It has already hit its first take profit, right? The 786,886 fib pocket got up to the 0.5. So it's possible it's already played out. That being said, that just means it's a little bit riskier. So far, support is support until it's broken. So we still technically have that. What is ALGO Master saying? Actually showing the exact same fib. It's still got that, hasn't updated. So that is some additional confluence there. Trendmaster, we have a sell signal, but it's a higher sell signal, right? So the sell signal is fighting the trend. Wouldn't be too surprised to end up seeing basically some sort of a higher buy signal. As long as we can reclaim this blue line here, get comfortably above my 786 and hold that, we should see a higher buy signal come into play on the MDX Trendmaster on the daily time frame, and I think that would be a very nice sign. Even the fact that currently we have higher trending buy signals and sell signals on the daily, I think that's a fairly big deal. I like to see that. What about shorter time frames? Looking at the 1 hour, for example. I mean, basically the same fib pull, looking for random diagonal trend lines here. Interesting. We had a bit of a downtrend line, flipping that resistance into support. I know not everybody likes diagonal trend lines, but that looks fairly clean how we respected it. I could see us end up even dropping and retesting it, something like this, and then gaining support. That would also be very nice, in my opinion. As long as we can hold that diagonal trend line, that would be beautiful confluence as well. What's the Trendmaster saying? Same thing. So on the Trendmaster on the 1 hour, we have basically a double bottom buy signal. So it's not like there's a very obvious trend there. However, a nice sign of strength is, once again, that we had these lower trending sell signals from back here, right? Sell signal, lower sell signal, lower sell signal. And we have obviously invalidated that by breaking the structure. Whether you want to go this or you go even more drastic and go right to the highest pivot from that sell signal, basically. Notice that we have got above and so far holding above that sell signal. So that's also a good sign of strength for the trend, in my opinion. Thoughts on the Euro USD? That's interesting. That's a good one. I will check. I have not looked at that in a very long time. I will look at the 4 hour. It looks bearish to me. At a quick glance, it looks bearish. So here's one of those times where we had high, higher high, higher low. We end up breaking that. That's where we can start pulling with our bearish fib, right? Just following the price, following the price, following the price. Boom, get our 786 retest there, end up sending to a new low there. And if I would then treat this as our low, lower low, lower high, if I pull a fib from here, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a fib necessarily, just double top territory, but we are respecting that lower high structure still. This is one of those times, just like what I was talking about many times at this point, is that we have tested this and it's actually played out several times, right? We tested 786, first target, 786, first target, 786,886, first target, 786,886, damn near first target. And so far we are getting rejected again, but this, yeah, we've been testing that resistance so many times. Is it actually going to hold? I don't know. I've never done back testing on this kind of pair either, so I don't know how accurate something like that will be. I don't know. I assume, like, anytime I've looked at stocks or anything, I look at assets the same. So at this point, I mean, although we keep testing resistance and it should break eventually, the fact is resistance until it breaks. And so far, we still have that downtrend of low, lower, low, lower, high. So I would say it's closer to resistance than support. What is the Trendmaster saying? So this is, the Trendmaster is pointing potentially bullish here. We did set a higher sell signal and a higher buy signal. So maybe there is something to that we keep tapping away at resistance. So we may break through. It's just at a real risky area in general, in my opinion, just because that resistance has been tested so many times. I would be very scared to short something like that. However, I also wouldn't want to long right into resistance, right? So that's kind of my thought on the euro versus the dollar. Oh, East Coast. Nice, nice. I love the East Coast. Actually going to check out Halifax next fall. I was in Newfoundland a couple years ago. Love it out there. Let's say we get alt season in the next couple of weeks before BTC pushes in a new all-time high. Would that be the end of the bull market? I don't know. Honestly, we'll have to see what happens in that sort of a sense. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. I mean, if altcoins and Bitcoin are all pumping together, I don't think there's any signs of the end of the cycle at that point. It's more so when Bitcoin starts dropping or trading sideways and altcoins are doing their last thing, they're doing their last big push and going absolutely parabolic without Bitcoin. That's where I'll start to have my concerns about the, I guess, the cycle in general. Curry, fundamentals dictate structure. Yeah, absolutely. Fundamentals have their place. They do matter. I just don't think they matter for the actual execution with trading. As far as how I trade anyways, I personally only know one trader who trades fundamentals very well. I only know one. I know a lot of good traders who can trade charts. I only know one single person who nails fundamental trading, but they are also not trading a 5-minute chart or a 4-hour chart. They're trading weekly charts and daily charts. But I agree. Fundamentals do matter. It's just if you're trying to trade fundamentals on a 5-minute chart, you're going to have a bad time. What do I think of Trump's new coin? I think it was a great money grab once again, and his followers keep getting taken advantage of. That's my thoughts, but to each their own. It's a crazy chart. I've got no idea how to play it. Which one was that? Oh, that was WLD. Yeah, exactly. That's just a tough one when it does something like that. Oh, I don't even have it up anymore. But that WorldCoin chart, yeah, the fact that it went so nuts there, that just makes it hard, right? I know everyone wants to get in on something like that because of the FOMO. It's just something to take caution that it just gets risky when things are that volatile. That's all there is to it. Already did Ethereum. I did. Basically, so far, it's still holding my range. It looks a little bit weak, but technically it's just holding the same range that it's been holding for damn near a week. as long as Ethereum stays above my green box here, basically 42, or what was it, 39.25. So I know that's fairly large, but that's zooming out to a 4 hour like this. With my fib pull here, breaking the 115 would be basically below 39.24. Saying buy all the altcoins. I'm saying that I bought altcoins. But that being said, yes, I am more so just more interested in trading altcoins right now, because although, understand guys, when I say that I'm more bullish on altcoins than I am on Bitcoin, obviously that does not mean they're immune if Bitcoin ends up dumping. They are also going to dump. It's just more so at this phase of the cycle that I think when Bitcoin finds its footing and the market in general starts finding support, that's where altcoins are bouncing far more aggressively than Bitcoin is. So I've actually been trading altcoins a lot more than Bitcoin recently. Like I said, I mean, I do have that position on Bitcoin open from 107,580 from the lows down here, but I only have a quarter of that position still running. Anything can happen from here. I hope it runs all the way to new all-time highs, but the market doesn't always care about what I want, so we'll find out. BTC dominance, I checked that out earlier. So basically, yeah, on this massive 5.5 year channel, this fib pull is from 5.5 years ago, and we basically tested the STU'S fib, dropped a diagonal trend line, dropped another diagonal trend line. So far, it looks to me like this has a ton of room to go to the downside, because we haven't even hit my 0.5 target yet, not to mention my 214. Obviously, it doesn't need to just go in a straight line like this. It can bounce around, and generally if Bitcoin dominance bounces, we're going to see corrections in the market. But as it drops to the downside, that's just a big green light for altcoins to do their thing, as long as Bitcoin remains fairly healthy, right? If the whole market goes full panic mode for whatever reason, altcoins are not going to be immune to that. That's all there is to it. Anyways, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So hopefully you guys did find this stream useful. If so, be sure to hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I really appreciate doing these streams with you guys. Thank you for being here with me. And as I mentioned, if you want access to my private Telegram channel where I share some of my theories, some of my trade setup ideas, just my overall thoughts on the market, yeah, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link and follow the steps in the description below. But yeah, with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Oh, sorry, one last thing. As I mentioned earlier, my partners at BloFin currently giving new members only this little bit of a deposit bonus for trial to try out the exchange, as well as, you know, get into my Telegram and that sort of stuff. So if that is something that interests you, do yourselves a favor as well. Scan the QR code on the screen. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.